That is the front axle off. Okay, so I've just spent a little bit of time on the Porsche today, and I've taken both water coolers off and both condensers. I was inspecting these pipes here. I think they're pretty much original, but they look pretty good. I know just before I bought it, the garage up in Scotland had a look at a leak that was on either side of these water coolers, and they'd actually ordered a couple of new radiators in anticipation, but just found that the gaskets or the sealing rings had gone on the radiator, so I think they just changed them, but I can't actually see any particular sealing rings there, so maybe it was just literally a loose clamp or something. But anyway, they're off, and it's exposed that quite nicely, and it'll allow me now to take off all of the pipe work underneath. The next step really, if I'm honest, is to drop the fuel tank, which of course is completely full of fuel. I think 60 odd litres. So I'm going to have to see what I can do there to get it out. But this is a good start in exposing all of the bodywork, so I can check for any corrosion or any touch-up work. Okay, so just removing this aircon pipe here. So it routes behind that fuel line and drops back behind this water pipe, and then goes through here into clamp there, and then just comes out here. So I'm going to take that off now. I'm just going to take the horn off because I've seen there's some corrosion on this bracket here, so I'll take that off and clean it up. And I've marked the cables, and the shorter one goes to that horn, the longer one goes to that horn. So just looking at those horns in the light, you can see the horns themselves are fine. Bit of dirt corrosion there, which will clean up, but this bracket, as you can see, really needs a good clean up. But I know they work, so that's fine. Just a little bit corroded. So the plan today is to drop the entire front axle, but to do that I have to drain the petrol tank, which is of course full with 60 litres of fuel. So I have that container there, which I will transfer the fuel to. I've got a few things on the table here to help me do that. So I've got some pipe work and a pump to help me drain that tank. I've also got the official workshop guide on how to do it. So I'm going to follow that to the T, because that's obviously the easiest and quickest way to do it. So let's see how we get on. Okay, so I've just taken the filler neck out, and the way you do that is you release the ground cable here and the fuel return pipes or the overflow pipes here, and then what you do is you turn the whole neck very carefully 45 degrees, and you sort of wobble it out and it comes out. And that is the one-way valve here to stop the petrol coming back out of the tube here. And yeah, as you can see, it could do with a bit of a clean-up, but otherwise absolutely fine. Okay, so I've got my petrol draining, literally just a pipe into the tank, and I use that to get it started, which is a little pump itself, and it's just draining nicely into the canister here. Will take a long while because it's quite a thin pipe, but that's fine. So while that's draining, I'm just preparing everything else to be able to actually drop this entire front axle off. So removing these bolts here so I can take these sensor cables off. So just making a note of the ABS sensor is on the left and the brake wear sensor is on the right. Yeah. And obviously the brake lines, which I'm replacing with some Goodrich braided lines when they come. I've ordered those from Design 911 in the UK. Okay, so that maybe took about 15-20 minutes to get that much out. I'm guessing the tank's not actually empty yet because that just doesn't look like enough fuel, and I'm pretty sure I had a fuel tank when I put it up. Put it up in the garage for winter. So I'm guessing if that's a 60 litre tank, then maybe that's not even 50, so 45, 50 45, 47 maybe litres in there. So I'm guessing there's still some in the tank. And I will get that out by, or I'll check at least by taking the battery out and getting into the top of the fuel tank via the fuel pump. Okay, so I've just taken out the battery, and that battery that I've got there is probably the best one you can get for this car. I think it's about 200 euros or so. And it's a good size. It's bigger, much bigger than the one that was in there, but really turns over the engine nicely. So I've taken that out, but it is incredibly heavy. And now I'm going to use a 13mm socket to get these 4 bolts out, or nuts off that plate there, to access the fuel pump. Battery tray off, and looking under here, I'm guessing that's never been off since the car was put together, just by looking at the sort of the amount of crud under here and how it looks. So what I've got to do is, I think there's probably enough fuel out of the tank now to actually just drop it down, but I've also got to remove these connectors here for the fuel pipes and the power to the petrol pump. And that'll be that. But beforehand, I'm going to obviously clean everything up here, hoover it out. Okay, so that is everything detached from there. Now I need to raise the car up again on the lift and start undoing and supporting the cross member here for the front axle. Okay, so the next step is to remove these straps, but actually before that I read back through the instructions. It says just simply in one line remove coolant lines, and that's all of this here. So what you actually have to do is you have to get up, I don't know if you can really see that, you have to get up in here and remove the lines, those big coolant lines from in here, just by releasing those clips around there and pushing it off. I used a piece of angled wood just to push those off, because if they've been on there since new, which mine have, they don't really move very nicely. So now I'm going to just loosen this off from the clips here and here, and just slide this first waterline off. So just before I take the smaller return lines off, just to look where they go, this one passes along here, that goes to the top of the radiator of course, and they clip in just underneath here and go down between the 2 pipes like that. Okay, so this gives you an idea now of what the car looks like without the water pipes underneath. So they've all come off, and that means you can gain access to these straps here which hold in the fuel tank. And then over here, it's an amazing amount of pipe work on this car. They look like an exhaust system. But those are the upper and lower coolant lines, and these are the small return lines. So I'll now be able to put a support underneath the fuel tank, and now I've got to disconnect the steering column from the steering rack, which is just up here. Can't really see it, but there's a, you can't see it at all, it's just black, but just at the end of my finger there's a bolt which connects the steering column to the steering rack. You can just see it shining there, and I've got to remove that. Then I can drop this entire section down. Okay, so the next step is to remove these last straps here. I've taken one of them off there, and you can see how corroded these things are. So it'll be quite good fun to get those tidied up, painted up again. But just as I was taking this off, this is the fuel tank cover. I can just got to take that. You can see them, they sort of push through the cross member there. I've actually got to get that off. But I can. That's that one. You're not coming. Why aren't you coming? Oh, it doesn't want to come out at the moment. But anyway, I could just hear a whole bunch of stones under there. So I'm just going to ease this off. Oh, it's not too bad actually, but that's all the crud, which is, if that would focus, that's what it looks like underneath, and I'm guessing that's coming off for the first time as well. So what I'm going to have to do now is, you can see there are sort of connection points here, I suppose. I don't know where else it's held in place, this thing. But I'm going to get support underneath it now. Okay, so next step is to support the cross member with a workshop jack, which is this. I've used a piece of block of wood underneath there. And I've also removed the bolt there, holding the steering column onto the steering gear. Now what I need to do is undo all of these bolts, holding the holding the front axle onto the body shell, and then I move it down 15 centimeters, and then it says you can detach the fuel tank and then slide it out. So here goes. Okay guys, so it looks a bit of a mess, but it's an organized mess. So this has been a bit of a pain in the arse. Taking the front axle off, it's pretty straightforward until you start having to mess about with supporting the front shocks, because they sort of flop about everywhere. And I'm sure there's a much better way of doing it than I've done it, but that is essentially how I'm doing it. And the other thing is, I can't get the fluid lines disconnected from the, I can't see it, disconnected from the steering rack, because that bolt is absolutely in there. It's just unbelievable, that bloody thing. Oh, I tried it with the impact wrench and everything, you can't see it. So what I had to do is I had to take off the steering control arms. I can't remember the proper name for it, which I'm replacing anyway, but of course they took a bloody age to get off because they were really stuck in there. But anyway, so they're off now, and I'm now going to raise up the car and film it. Okay, so the car is at its highest, minus the front axle. That took a long time to get off, but it's done now, so it really sort of frees everything up. I'll be able to get the fuel tank off. I want to do that today. And this is the entire steering rack. The steering rack is actually up here. I had to leave it on there because I couldn't get this these lines off here because of this hex bolt here. I just used the impact gun, nothing, and I didn't want to break that housing in there because that means a new steering rack, so I'm going to be careful with that. But that is the front axle off. It looks a bit precarious, but that is I'll have to tidy it up a little bit, but you can see literally everything is on there, and will give me a really good chance to tidy everything up. What's dripping down there? Oh yeah, it's brake fluid. You can see underneath here, it really sort of gives me a chance to get all of these cables off, all these pipes off, so I can really do the entire underside of this car. So I started here, but quickly realised that it wasn't enough. I've got to take everything. I've got to take these shocks off at the back. So I'm going to get a professional company to come in. They're going to do it in here. And I'm going to row everything down. They're going to put new seam sealant on all of the seams, and they're going to do all the stone chip. And I've got all the stuff, the original Worth stone chip and seam sealant, all which has been used in the Porsche factory, and light. And they're going to do it for me. So it's going to be brand new underneath here when it's done, but it's just taking some time, I tell you. But anyway, that's that. I was going to say that's it for today, but it won't be. I want to get that fuel tank out, and then I'll have done that for this weekend. So that'll be that. So these are the front subframe bolts, and that's in the order that they go. So I think that's 18, 18, 18, and that's I think a 16. Can't remember, but anyway, that's how they go. Back of the car, front of the car. And guys, check this out. It was all dry when I went in the workshop earlier, but now I've come back out and it's all snowing. we've just had a load of snow and it's just been melting, and it was gone by the weekend, and now it's all gone cold again and it is snowing again. So just having a closer look at the hidden parts of this axle, and also that battery tray there has just got tons, caked in mud underneath. But you can just see here, look, this is the cross member to there, and it's just all silted up. So I'm going to enjoy cleaning all this up. I'll probably take all the suspension components off. Oh, I don't want to damage it, but probably take all the suspension components off, because all these are new. They're dirty, but they're all new a couple of years ago. So I'll really clean this up, and this is quite new as well. This is the original MO30 suspension kit, which was put on by the previous owner. It's all still looking pretty good. So yeah, quite a lot of cleaning up to do, but I've tied it up a little bit. But now I'm going to take off the fuel tank. Okay, from the front of the car then, the petrol tank is finally out. It's a bit tricky because when you're up in here, oh, it's very dark, but these lines, fluid lines for the steering rack, they sort of fold in underneath the tank, so you've got to take out that clip there. You've got to take out that clip, and then you've got to pry that forward and then drop it out. And I used the workshop jack, but it's a bloody big thing. Oh, the lighting in here is so disastrous to do any kind of filming. You go underneath the car and then suddenly you're blinded by one of the ceiling lights. But anyway, that is the petrol tank finally out. It'd be so cool to give that a clean and get the whole underside of the car done and get it all back together, but that is a long way off.